When the sun sets, it is time for the top stories from the day. Good evening and welcome to Sunset News. As always, we bring you news, community stories, economics, weather, sports, and so much more. I am Glenora Shipura. In the news tonight, food storage during power outages has come into focus following the illness of hundreds of learners at the Rundu Secondary School hostel. The Kavango East Education Directorate is investigating the cause and suspects a power outage which affected the entire town as a factor which may have affected the cooling and storage of food. According to the school, 283 learners reported severe diarrhea after dinner, with 15 of the learners requiring treatment at Rundu Intermediate Hospital. Health officials were called in to assist the remaining affected learners on site. The Education Directorate criticized the lack of formal communication from power supplier NORAD ahead of the outage, stating that notices on social media were not sufficient for reliable planning. With a timely written notice, food deliveries and storage could have been adjusted to prevent possible spoilage. The Directorate said. Kavango East Education Director Christine Shilima said the matter would be formally raised with NORAD management. In future, reliable communication is needed so schools can respond in time to power interruptions. The incident occurred less than a month after a similar case at Kashin-Kashi Combined School in Kavango West. Their investigations found poor handling and inadequate storage of food as the cause of illness among 100 learners, 40 of whom were hospitalized. The repeated incidents point to broader risk in the management of hostel meals, particularly where electricity supply is unreliable. In our next story, a 62-year-old woman from the village of Oshia-Gaya in the Oshikoto region has been denied bail by Odangwa Magistrates Court after being accused of smuggling a 15-year-old Angolan girl who was employed as a domestic worker in her home into the country and abusing her. Selma Daniel faces charges including human trafficking, breaches of the Child Care and Protection Act, and multiple counts of child abuse, neglect, and abandonment. Prosecutor Wisdom Ndakonja opposed her release on bail, citing ongoing investigations. Judge Lydia Kambonde ordered that Daniel remain in custody at Okatope Police Station and adjourned the case until the 19th of August 2026. Daniel, who had originally intended to represent herself in court, has applied for legal representation after the judge informed her that following a possible conviction, she could face a fine of up to $1 million or up to 30 years imprisonment. Daniel cited her care responsibility for a young child and an elderly person as grounds for release on bail. Kambonde informed her that she should submit a formal bail application. The court heard that the victim had been repeatedly abused since mid-2025, including through starvation, physical assault, and unpaid forced labor. The victim, who is currently being treated in a state hospital, is said to have been frequently starved, forced to work without breaks, and made to sleep on the floor in a hut without a door. It has also emerged in court that the minor had been beaten with a stick on several occasions and had been promised a monthly wage of $500 million, which she allegedly never received. The case came to light after a video showing the girl's condition was shared on social media, prompting the police to intervene and launch a criminal investigation. Puma Energy Namibia says it is losing about $150,000 a day after being removed from its aircraft refueling operations at two national airports as it fights to regain access to and use its equipment through an urgent High Court application opposed by Namibia Airports Company. The dispute concerns a $222 million aviation fuel tender awarded by NAC to Central Oil Namibia on the 17th of January 2022. following a procurement process initiated in August 2021. The 15-year contract replaced Puma, which had operated aircraft refueling services at Namibia's airports for approximately 18 years under concession agreements. Despite the tender award to Central Oil, Puma continued operating under its expired concession agreements, effectively delaying the implementation of the new contract. Central Oil Namibia took the dispute to court, seeking to enforce its contract and compel Puma Energy to transition. Puma was finally removed from operations at Eros and Andimba Twevo airports on the 11th of March 2026, triggering the current legal challenge. The matter is before High Court judges Gladys Pickering and Gabriel Camboni and centers on Puma's claim that was unlawfully removed from its operations at Eros Airport and Andimba Twevo Airport earlier this month. Puma, whose operations were halted on the 11th of March, is seeking an amendment van spoiler order, a legal remedy designed to protect the parties which have been unlawfully or forcibly dispossessed of property or possession, regardless of whether they legally own it. In essence, Puma is asking the court to restore its access to and use of the refueling equipment and facilities it had been operating at the airports, pending the resolution of the underlying contractual dispute. Submissions made in court by Daniela Biekus, Puma's legal representative, stated that the applicant, Puma Energy, has long been complaining of its possessions being disturbed, and the alleged spoliation is causing a daily loss of 150,000 Namibian dollars. The applicant seeks restoration of its position pending the resolution of the underlying disputes. However, NAC, represented by Sisa Namanje, told the judges on Tuesday that the application is not urgent and that any urgency is self-created. According to NAC, Puma had long been aware that a new service provider, Central Oil Namibia, listed as the second respondent, had been awarded the contract through a procurement process. NAC maintains that Puma's continued operations became unlawful after the expiry of its concession agreements and that the Public Procurement Act governs the awarding of such services. The airport authority further argues that granting the relief sought would effectively allow Puma to return to the airports and continue using the equipment without a valid procurement award, thereby undermining statutory requirements. In our next story, Russia said it will begin uranium mining in Namibia by 2029 as part of a planned joint project expected to expand economic ties between the two countries significantly. Russian Deputy Prime Minister Yuri Trutnev said the project, which will involve the state nuclear corporation Rosatom, is being positioned as a cornerstone of future bilateral cooperation. Speaking at the opening of the Russia-Namibia Intergovernmental Commission on Trade and Economic Cooperation in Windhoek, Trutnev said the uranium development would fundamentally change the nature of economic relations between the two countries. The project is expected to increase trade volumes to more than $500 million annually, create around 600 jobs, and generate over $3 billion in direct tax payments over the life of the mine. Rosatom is currently advancing the Wings uranium project in Namibia's Omaheke region, where exploration and development work are underway. The project is expected to use in situ leaching, a mining method that extracts uranium from underground without the need for large open pits. Trutnev said Russia is not limiting its ambitions to uranium mining alone, adding that discussions are also underway on nuclear energy and medical technologies. He said Rosatom has experience operating in more than 60 countries and has developed a range of nuclear solutions, including floating nuclear power plants. The proposed development comes as Namibia continues to consolidate its position as a major global uranium producer. The planned 2021 the planned 2029 start date places the project within Namibia's broader push to expand its uranium sector, which has attracted increasing international interest as global demand for nuclear energy rises. Moving on to our next story, the Namibia Economic Freedom Fighters has issued a formal letter of demand to the Electoral Commission of Namibia, seeking more than $26.8 million in damages over its controversial deregistration ahead of the 2024 elections, which the party says cost its seats and crippled its campaign. A report by a political science expert commissioned by NEFF concluded that the deregistration decision had a disastrous impact on the party's electoral prospects. The report suggests the party could have secured at least 4 seats in the National Assembly, 2 more than its anticipated growth trajectory, had the deregistration not happened. In the letter of demand dated the 13th of March and addressed to ECN CEO Petrus Sharma, the party's legal representatives, Kadila Amomo legal practitioners, argue that the Commission's decision to deregister the party in June 2024 caused reputational damage, loss of campaign resources, and a mass departure of members. The lawyers warn that unless the ECN responds by the 19th of March, the party will proceed with a damages claim in the High Court. Our client has instructed our office to demand damages suffered in the amount of over 6 million multiplied by 4 seats, which is the projected representation our client would have achieved had it not been disadvantaged by your unlawful and wrongful deregistration before elections. The letter states the party ultimately secured 3,978 votes, earning its president Epaphras Moakwi-Longo a single seat in the National Assembly. The letter claims the deregistration sent a damaging message to voters. They further allege that the decision triggered an exodus of members to rival parties and led to the withholding of parliamentary funding that would otherwise have been used for campaign materials. NEFF also claims the ECN ignored legal advice cautioning against deregistration. The letter states the dispute stems from the ECN's decision to deregister NEFF in June 2024, citing the party's failure to submit audited financial statements and publish abridged versions in national newspapers as required under the Electoral Act. However, the Windhoek High Court later ruled in favor of the party, finding that the Commission had violated its own procedures by failing to allow NEFF to be heard before cancelling its registration. Judge Thomas Masuku said the Commission should have followed the procedural steps set out in the Electoral Act. The ECN has previously faced enforcement action over the matter. Last year, the High Court issued a right of execution allowing Deputy Sheriff to seize and auction the Commission's movable property after it failed to pay legal cost owed to NEFF following the court ruling. In the 2024 parliamentary elections, NEFF lost one of its 2 seats, resulting in party leader Epaphras Moakwi-Longo losing his place in the National Assembly. His deputy Longinus Ipumbu now holds the party's sole seat in parliament. Now, that concludes our top stories. On the other side of the break, we take a look at what's happening in our community talk.
AITSA is 'n echt Namibiese inisiatief. Ons reis op die hartklop van Afrika en vertel stories van mense en hulle dorpe op verskeie platforms insluitende televisie en sosiale media. Dit is joune, syne, julle en ook almal van hulle aan die ander kant van ons grense sinne. En dit maak AITSA 'n lekker ding. Kyk AITSA maande om 18:30 op NTV, oneup2.com, as ook op Netwerk Media Hub en NTV Afrikaans se YouTube kanale. Volg ons op Facebook of besoek ons webwerf by aitsafrica.com.
Orwetoveni residents in Oshuarongo welcomed the official handover on Monday of a newly constructed water reticulation network aimed at improving living conditions and restoring dignity to the community. Speaking at the event, Urban and Rural Development Minister James Sankwasa said it is not just about pipes, taps and meters, it is about dignity, progress and partnership. Access to water is a basic human need and a fundamental service that the government must ensure is brought closer to the people. The project in Extension 16 and 17 has already serviced 404 plots with 80 households connected to water through taps and meters, a milestone that is expected to significantly improve health, hygiene, and overall quality of life in the area. Sankwasa noted that what sets the project apart is the strong involvement of the community itself. Much of the work was carried out by residents supported by local plumbing artisans, helping to reduce cost while building skills and creating employment. This approach not only made the project more affordable, but it also empowered the community by building local skills, creating employment, and strengthening a sense of ownership. The minister said the development forms part of a broader initiative to upgrade the informal settlement previously known as Own Risk, through collaboration between government, the municipality, and organizations such as the Shag Dwellers Federation of Namibia and the Namibia Housing Action Group. The area is being transformed into a serviced and more dignified residential neighborhood. However, the minister cautioned that the work is far from complete. That concludes our community talk. Up next, economic news.
Business First Africa is a forward-looking business show that goes beyond balance sheets to capture how Africans are building, creating, and living. Afrotech explores innovation, AI, and digital systems shaping the continent's economies. Brave and Building profiles Namibian entrepreneurs and businesses transforming industries and urban spaces. Creative Capital spotlights creatives and the creative economy, unpacking how culture becomes value. Africa in 10 delivers a sharp roundup of key developments across the continent. Don't miss Business First Africa, because it's not just business, it's life.
AITSA is 'n echt Namibiese inisiatief. Ons reis op die hartklop van Afrika en vertel stories van mense en hulle dorpe op verskeie platforms insluitende televisie en sosiale media. Dit is joune, syne, julle en ook almal van hulle aan die ander kant van ons grense sinne. En dit maak AITSA 'n lekker ding. Kyk AITSA maande om 18:30 op NTV, oneof2.com, as ook op Netwerk Media Hub en NTV Afrikaans se YouTube kanale. Volg ons op Facebook of besoek ons webwerf by aitsafrica.com.
Getting into our economic news, acting investment executive at the Namibia Investment Promotion and Development Board, Ndeyapo Shilongo, says Namibia remains an attractive investment destination despite regulatory gaps, with efforts underway to fast-track reforms. Here's more.
NIPDB that's here to support you. There are clear entry points. The rule of law is very stable. The policy and the regulators are catching up. So we are a little bit behind, but we are fast-tracking the regulation required to support you, and we have the skills base to support you. We have a lot of young entrepreneurs with big dreams and great ideas that just need that support and investment. So what are the specific areas in which we can collaborate? FinTech is one of them. And when you talk about FinTech, even something as simple as our Minister of ICT has really been speaking about payment gateways for our creatives. So our creators are not able to monetize and commercialize their art and their talent and their capabilities. And that is, for instance, one area in which we need the investments. Mobile payments and to support those in the rural areas that do not have access physically to, let's say, the banks. So we have a lot of people who are relying on banks. Payments is still an area that is open for investment.
All right, let's take a look at what's happening on the financial indicators. The Namibian dollar trades against the British pound at 22.20, against the euro at 19.19. 2 Namibian dollars and 42 cents gets you 1 Chinese yuan. On the commodities market, copper went down while gold, platinum and Brent crude oil went up. Brent crude oil trading at 0.30%, going for $101 and 49 cents per barrel. Getting into our international news, a former government minister and senior figure in the African National Congress will face bribery charges, South African State Prosecution said on Tuesday. Zizi Kodwa was arrested in 2024 while serving as a Minister for Sports and Arts. He was accused of taking $85,000 in bribes in connection with contracts to upgrade and maintain software systems in Johannesburg, but local prosecutors withdrew the charges months later, saying the prospects of a successful prosecution were slim. National authorities briefly revived the case in January before setting it aside once again. Now state prosecutors have decided to go ahead. Data from 2019 suggests that corruption could have cost South Africa more than $31 billion, then about a tenth of the country's GDP. Earlier this month, ANC parliamentarian Vincent Smith became the first top official to be jailed on fraud and corruption charges. Long-standing claims of corruption and mismanagement have tarnished the ANC's reputation, contributing to the loss of its parliamentary majority in 2024. All right, let's take a look at the weather predictions for tomorrow. The capital city can expect a minimum of 18 degrees Celsius and a maximum of 29 degrees Celsius with partly cloudy conditions, while Katima Mulilo can expect a minimum of 18 and a maximum of 31 degrees Celsius with partly cloudy conditions. Arons Flay can expect a minimum of 24 and a maximum of 33 degrees Celsius with partly cloudy conditions, while Orange Moon can expect a minimum of 17 and a maximum of 26 degrees Celsius, also with partly cloudy conditions. And with that, we've come to the end of the broadcast. Thank you for tuning in and catching up on the latest news with Sunset News. From me, Glenora Shipura, until next time.